the fastest way out the door with this company is to mistreat people. You can get a lot of stuff wrong here and we can work through it and we can fix it. But if you are abusing or mistreating people, you can't stay.
Welcome to the Business Growth Masterclass, where business growth is made simple. I'm your host, Albert Gillespie.
And I'm your co-host, Kellen Ketchersid. Join us as we bring you stories from business leaders so you can learn from their wins, their losses, and everything in between.
All right. Today's guest is the former co-president and owner of United Supermarkets and the current CEO in residence at Lubbock Christian University. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Matt Bumstead.
Sounds very auspicious.
I know
it is format.
I know I have to clear my throat, get ready, make it.
I'm looking over my shoulder to see who this important person is you're surely going to be talking to, because it can't be this one.
Yeah, it is for sure. We've been looking forward to it for that reason. So
this is great. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
All right, Kellen, you've already got a taste of the humble man that is Matt Bumstead. And you've done so much in the business world. And I really want to get into a lot of the kingdom at work stuff and your faith and how that interacts with it. But to set the table for people that didn't grow up in Lubbock, I didn't grow up in Lubbock.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about United Supermarkets. And when I came to Lubbock, it was like,
that's all there is.
Going to Market Street for lunch was like the place.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing of it. So if you don't mind, kind of give a lay of the land. What is United Supermarkets? What is your family's history? It was a family business. Kind of give us that origin story, if you don't mind.
I have to tell you a funny story that's popping into my head that is out of sequence.
Okay, go ahead.
And you may edit this out. But back when we were building our first store in the DFW area, so this was 2003, and our first one was Colleyville, and then we followed up with McKinney. I was out there on site doing a lot of the training with the initial people. This was a big deal for us to move to DFW. It was very, very risky for us. DFW was
big market.
The most competitive grocery market in America. Might still be, but certainly was during that time. So there was a reason to think we were insane for doing this, but we thought this was important to our future to go ahead and get out there. Anyway, so I'd been out there, long day, training all day, talking all day. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I finally left, going back to my hotel, stopping to get something to eat. I'm turning on sports radio, national sports talk, and it's the top of the hour. And the host, I don't remember who it was, said, okay, I want to talk about, and this was during the time when Coach Bob Knight was the coach here.
Yeah, I was a student.
And he had gotten in an altercation with the chancellor. Okay, David Smith.
Okay,
out in public.
Oh boy,
I remember this. Wasn't it?
It was at Market Street.
Yes,
at 50th in Indiana. And
that's
this national radio host who knows nothing of Lubbock and certainly of United. I'm here in the drive-thru picking up my food, ready to go back to my hotel, and this guy says, "All right, top of the hour. I want to talk a little bit more about this Bob Knight story. And there's an aspect to this story that everyone is ignoring that I just want us to talk about for a second, because the way I'm reading it from the AP is that this altercation happened at a local supermarket, salad bar, which is a popular local place to eat." And he said, "What does this say about Lubbock, Texas?"
Oh, no.
He said, "I've been in grocery stores and seen their side." And he starts just totally piling on and saying, what does it say about Lubbock that a popular place to eat there is a local grocery store? And I was sitting there envisioning myself calling the guy and saying, I will donate $1,000 to the charity of your choice right now. But you come to Lubbock and you tell me if this, I was just sitting there going, but it was so surreal to be sitting there hearing this guy talk about this in that context.
That is hilarious.
That has nothing to do with our conversation, but you started talking about people having no clue about United. And it is, and I was the beneficiary of it. Certainly being fourth generation. My great-grandfather founded it in 1916. And when
1916. Oh
yes,
my.
So when we sold the business, we were finishing our 98th year.
Wow.
So again, my brother and I were the two fourth generation family members who were in management and in the day-to-day business. And we recognized that we were recipients of the previous three generations. And then, of course, we're the beneficiaries of these generations of incredible people who are the ones doing the work. So when we left United, we had, it's funny, it's been long enough now that I get my numbers mixed up. I think we had 14,000 team members when we left.
Wow.
So it is humbling because, again, here y'all are talking to me about United, and I get people who credit me with things at United, and I am recognizing all the while, really my job was not to screw it up and to be the biggest cheerleader and just remind people what we're all about, what the point and purpose of United was. But yeah, it started in Sayre, Oklahoma. My great-grandfather, they were in Oklahoma for several decades, and then in the late 40s built two stores in Texas, Vernon and Wellington. Vernon still has a United. Wellington does not. But my grandfather bought those two Texas stores from my great-grandfather. From that point forward, United of Texas and United of Oklahoma became separate companies. United of Oklahoma sold before we sold, but they did sell as well. Anyway, and when we sold, like I said, 14,000 team members, 52 stores, and really, yeah, had a lot of success.
That's amazing. Yeah. And a good reputation. I know when I was growing up here with friends working at United, people always talked about the benefits and what a good place it was for young people who are, looking to save up for college and things like that. And just the way, my wife, when she would study, she would go to that same Market Street on 50th to have a good place to eat and then set up with the Wi-Fi and get to work. So it's just become a staple for people, a real place to hang out and eat lunch if you're Bob Knight or me, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. That is just a cool thing, especially the generational aspect of it.
Yeah.
You never hear that. 4 generations of families in one business.
Yeah.
But
there are a lot of stories, as you can imagine.
So as you guys create something unique, and I know you're being very humble in, what impact you had on United as inheriting this, but you also were instrumental in a lot of this later stage of the business.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what you did to help create or continue this healthy culture and eventually lead to deciding to sell?
So last part first, really, I never thought we would sell. That was not in my vision at all. I was part of a family, and, I had a little slice of ownership, but I'm just one vote, one part of the pie. And, to get to the end of that part of the story, when we did sell, I do think it was the right thing in the right time. But I was the last one to come to that. And honestly, they could have and would have done it, whether I came to that or not. I always acknowledged to them that it wasn't what I thought we should do, but that I also loved what I did. That United was, that was my work mission. That was my calling. And I loved it, and I felt strongly about who we were and what we were in the kingdom and what we were, the place we occupied in all these lives. But I did get to a place where I realized, and I know we might talk about that later, kind of why it was the right decision, but I think it was. What was the first part? Oh my God. Oh, well, my part in the culture. Yeah. That really is. It's kind of interesting because, when we think about leadership, that leadership at its heart and at its core is all about serving. People talk about servant leadership as a type of leadership, and really biblically, there is no other kind. Leadership is about serving. First of all, the Lord,
right?
But as a means of serving Him, serving His people through a great mission, and serving all of the people who are part of that mission and helping them succeed, and seeking to bless their lives as they're seeking to drive this mission forward. I always said the people working in the business every day are the ones who brought it to life. And again, there's no greater fan or no one prouder of United and what United was able to do over the years. But I will always say it was those people. It was the 15 and 16-year-old Sacker. Yeah. It was the people occupying every corner of that store. So, I trained in the stores, and I learned, and I was what we used to call a district manager, then a regional vice president. I supervised numerous stores after I'd managed my own store. There were definitely aspects of the business that I probably did have where I was probably fairly proficient and could have, gone into that area. But in no area or corner of the business was I ever going to be better than our best people at that. So they didn't need me to try to run operations. There were guys and ladies who were going to be better at that than I was. It's not that I wasn't going to be decent at it, but they didn't need me to get in the middle of all those things. What a team needs its leader to do is to do the things that only the leader can do. That if the leader isn't doing them, they're not going to get done, or they're certainly not going to get done with the impact that they will get done if the leader does them. And so what I recognized along the way was that, can I contribute to the operation of the stores and different aspects of the operation of the company or marketing or whatever? Yeah. Do I occasionally, is it good for me to put my voice in there occasionally to agree or disagree with something we're thinking about? Of course. But what I could do that I was, because of my position, that I could do more impactfully than anyone else was drive the culture, drive the identity. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And this is why we do it. This is what we're all about here. And when the leader speaks that, that does set the tone. Yeah. If I tell my students at LCU that if even the second in command speaks all these wonderful things over the team will appreciate that. If the COO is telling them all this grand vision about this is our purpose, this is what we're here to do, this is what this means, they're going to love it. But they're going to ultimately look over at the CEO, whoever is top, to see what he or she thinks. Because if he or she doesn't buy into it, there's only so far that's going to go. Yeah. When crunch time comes, what the CEO cares about is what's going to matter. And if the CEO is like, I'm not buying into all this culture stuff, this purpose stuff, this is all about the numbers, get me the performance, and that's it, then that's the world they're going to live in. So again, in my role, trying to be guardian over a culture that really was unique and trying to be something special, that was worth doing. And so that's what most of my energy, generally speaking, from hour to hour, day to day, was always around building that culture up, setting the framework for this is how we do things. All these ways are not how we do things, and just reinforcing it in every way possible over and over again.
What were the non-negotiables for your culture?
It's interesting. We covered this in class today. The simple way that we ended up putting it, I won't say that I saw this at first. I saw this later, unfortunately, when we had some chapters where we let some leadership, they had enough rope with which to hang themselves, and they really, kind of under cover of night, were really abusing their authority. And we came to realize that and dealt with it, and needed to then learn and grow from that. So one of the things that we would say from then on was, look, this is a grace-filled company. We all make mistakes, all of us. You can make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes when it comes to the tasks and the various aspects of your job. And you can make mistakes here, and we'll learn from them and get past them. You don't want to keep making the same mistake over and over again. But this is a grace-filled company. Second chances, third chances, that sort of thing. You can lose us money, and I'm never going to lose sleep over that. What I'm going to lose sleep over is knowing that somebody is being mistreated, under the umbrella of this company and its leadership, or how we are conducting ourselves. And the fastest way out the door with this company is to mistreat people. So that was the thing. you can get a lot of stuff wrong here and we can work through it and we can fix it. But if you are abusing or mistreating people, you can't stay. You may be great at your job, but you're not going to do it here. So that was probably the main one, was to say, look, this has always been about people. And again, for us, and I was in particular pretty overt about making the faith connection.
Yeah.
That wasn't always supported or agreed with by the rest of my family, but I kind of had the loudest microphone most of the time. And so sometimes I'd do it without their permission, and most of the people at United really wanted that. And even those who didn't, they appreciated, I think, the fact that I wasn't beating them over the head with faith, but I was saying, this is who we are. And again, this is why we do things.
Yeah.
Of course, it's about people, because that's what matters to the Lord. That's what this is all about, a relationship with him and then relationship with each other. But we would say that, look, everything about what matters about us is how we treat one another. Yes, we talk about how we treat the guest, but it's not exclusive to the guest. We should treat our vendors, our partners, the best we can, and we should treat each other the best we can. And if we do that, we are going to be so fulfilled by this place.
Love it.
Let me, that like hearing, an owner, a co-president, like talk through that, you're like, okay, what does that mean? And for me as an outsider from Lubbock, like going to a United or Market Street, it was like a step back in time, and put your earmuffs for a second, because this is going to make you uncomfortable. It was a step back in time because it was these young people. It felt like a small town grocery store, but it's this large chain with 50 plus stores and 14,000 employees. It felt like a small town grocery store. You go to the produce section, and there's like signs from like local farms where the produce comes from, and you're like, wow, they're like plugged into the local economy and the local farm and ranching community. Like that's thoughtful. That's really cool. And you go check out, and it's a 16-year-old kid, and they have it's almost like the Chick-fil-A experience. Like they have a vernacular that they speak. You go to take your cart out, and they grab it and say, oh, I got this, I can help you. And they do not let you. And if they don't, between the register and the exit door, there's going to be some person that works there that's going to come grab your cart and say, oh, let me help you. And they're going to take your cart out to your vehicle, you unload it, and they're going to take it back. And it's just like little things like that. But not only that, it was also, the kids that did do that then, I was in school with, kind of revered those jobs of like, that was a great training ground. The benefits were excellent. The pay was better than any other, kind of starting job like that. And so I like commend you, like, hearing a CEO say that, you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like those are fluffy words, but like actually seeing what does that look like was really, really cool. And I've got a note on my phone from like people that I've met over the years that have served me at different places, that I'm like, okay, that would be a rock star hire. And I can think of 2 or 3, from like 15 years ago, of people that are like, oh my gosh, like that girl is going to do whatever she wants. Yeah. And I think that speaks to the culture and the training ground that you guys developed there at United. And I don't know, I like practically seeing the words that you're talking about of what your culture is really cool to see.
Yeah, you can see it lived out. It's not just a mission statement painted on a wall or, in the break room. It's real at United, and you can tell that. Something you said a minute ago, I was wanting to circle back to, and you were talking about there were areas you could have helped in, but that wasn't your unique ability.
Yeah.
How do you figure out what your unique ability is?
What a great question for anyone. I mean, I think certainly, and y'all know, I mean, we didn't paint this conversation this way, but if I'm going to have a genuine conversation about this or about anything, faith is always going to be foundational. So with your permission, that's
of course
part of how I frame it, that I believe that God, creates us, designs us uniquely, individually, with different gifts, abilities, talents in different proportions. And that's part of what makes us uniquely us. There's only one you ever. There's only one you ever. And when you're gone, there won't be another one, right? So I think part of it is, the closer you are in a relationship with God, the more he's going to show you.
Yeah.
Because he has a purpose for those things he put into you. So I do think that part of how you experience it is that, practically speaking, again, forgive me that I keep saying I tell my students, but they're all kind of like my kids.
We're all your students today.
Poor you. That, part of it is, what is it that you do that when you do it, you can tell you do it well. You might assume that it comes easily to everybody, but it probably doesn't.
Right.
But that you also enjoy it when you're doing it. That it gives you a lot. You feel the success of whatever that thing is you're doing. You feel the impact, and you feel it's probably kind of akin to that idea of being in a flow state.
Yeah.
And I think that it's probably just experience. I mean, I think some people identify a gift very early on, or their parents help identify it. And by the way, that's another way, is that other people are affirming in you. Honestly, I mean, part of the way I've probably located, at least one or more of my spiritual gifts is hearing people tell me,
observing
that that's a gift. They say,
yeah.
My students have a paper they have to write where they identify a gift that they recognize they have, and what it will look like to use that in the workplace, and how that will be a positive impact on others and on them by using it in the workplace. And so a lot of them they've never thought about that before. And I say, think about these things, but I also say, ask the people who are close to you. Yeah. Ask them, tell them, I'm trying to figure out a gift I have. Can you help me? And they're going to point you towards something pretty easily.
That is so good. I was listening to someone else talking on this subject, and they were saying, the human beings are very good at seeing things in other people and not so good at seeing in themselves.
Yeah.
And that works, for both positive and negative. But
exactly.
The idea of asking somebody to give you that honest feedback is so powerful. I was in an exit interview when I was leaving a business for another job one time, and it was the most honest conversation that me and the president ever had with each other in my entire time employed there.
Yikes.
And and some of it was uncomfortable, but I said some uncomfortable things and he thanked me. He said some uncomfortable things that were the most helpful things he had ever said to me.
Right.
But it was because we were in that situation that we finally gave ourselves permission to say things that had been there. And I've often thought, man, if there had been some way to just get that honest feedback.
Yes.
There may never been that exit interview, right? So it's just powerful when you seek that out and can learn from it. Yeah.
Well, and we know, y'all know this, that there is certainly, it makes sense biblically and we see it, but there are lots of people who've figured this out and written books and done all kinds of teaching around the idea of operating from your strengths, operating from your gifts. And there's that temptation we have to find the things we're not good at and get good at them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's neither wise from a personal or from a business, a company perspective. Obviously, you're supposed to make sure you don't have any weaknesses in which you are so weak that you are doing damage to yourself or to others. Shore them up enough that they're not a problem.
Chaos.
Yeah. But you're not supposed to. You're not meant to try to. It's the same thing with business strategy. Do one thing. Find the few things that really matter to customers. Make sure you are in at least one of them. You are either the best or you're in the conversation of the best.
You're elite.
And in the others, you got to make sure you're competent in all of them. If you're too far below in any of them, you take yourself out of the equation. You're no longer an option, as a business. So you got to be good enough at all the things that matter to customers, and then make sure you are pretty close to dominant in one of them and be as good as you can at the others. Anyway, So from a personal perspective, once we find our gifts, to really try to maximize them, you know? Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know where we're going with the ultimate success story, but tell me some licks you've taken along the way. What's a loss you took that really sticks out that you learned something from, and what's a story you could share?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll try to say a couple quickly. One is that, you know, I take the concept of submitting to a role and submitting to authority pretty seriously. My wife might laugh at that, but generally speaking, that is true. And so when I was going through training at United, which I had a long, extensive, you know, training program that lasted, you know, over several years, they would put me with, you know, really top-notch individuals particularly in terms of their performance and their expertise at every stop, right? So I'd be learning from arguably the best, at least in the area at that department.
Cool.
It was. What I didn't think of until it was in hindsight was that particularly when we got into the area of management, when I kind of was stepping back now and it wasn't as much specializing as it was being a generalist in a leadership role, they would put me with a manager. And most of the time, those lessons and takeaways were fantastic across the board, okay? But in one particular situation, this person was really good at certain aspects of the operation. And I think the individual who selected that person as a teacher for me over several months was thinking of it from that perspective. But my approach was, this is my leader. This is an expert. This is someone who's been successful. I need to emulate them in every possible way. And that's, I see you grinning. You know, that's never a good idea. It's always a human being who's got blind spots and some areas of weakness. And so on numerous occasions, I think from a place of, you know, humility before that person and before their knowledge and experience and expertise, was genuinely trying to, you know, learn and be a sponge. But I copied them in some ways that were not.
Wasn't you?
Nobody wanted me to. Yeah, it was. Thankfully, I think it wasn't me, and they were not good behaviors or good approaches. They were the things you'd want to throw out while you keep all the rest of the stuff. But I was copying everything. So, you know, when you've done that, and other people have then seen you do that and operate that way, and they think, oh, well, that's how Matt is, right? Once you realize what you've done, and it's kind of too late, you've already done it. Now it's going to take some time before you can earn back people's trust and show them that's actually not really who you are. You were just, you know, in the best spirit, you were kind of a knucklehead. You were copying some things that you shouldn't have been copying.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then the other one, I'd say there are two main scars I think I experienced at United. One ended up, you know, yielding very positive things. And that is, as I mentioned earlier, we had a chapter in our story where part of it was our own family leadership transition. Probably didn't have any one of us really the voice of being in charge. And so that left some vulnerability for all the non-family people who had authority and leadership under us to exploit it if they wanted to. And unfortunately, we had some people who did. So we had some leaders in high levels who I had some concerns about. I had some reservations about, but my family disagreed and really kind of, you know, called me out and made me feel like I was being too judgmental or harsh or idealistic or whatever. And I didn't want to do that. So I silenced those. I prayed that God would help me see things differently, and I did. But it turned out down the road that my impressions had been right. And these people were wreaking havoc on the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of our people with the way they were leading when nobody was looking.
Yikes.
Fear, intimidation, abuse. And it was terrible. And because United was such a personal environment, so relational, and I sought to have such a connection with everybody in the company, Sackers in Perryton, I mean, anywhere, that I realized that as part of the outcome of that was that these people assumed Matt must know that they're treating us this way.
Yeah.
And he must be okay with it. How can he not know? Surely he knows. Well, I didn't know because they were good enough at covering stuff up, covering for each other, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But man, when I realized the way these people had been treating the people I loved in our company all over the place, and they'd been doing it in such a way that, it was representing us, and that again, a lot of people just assumed I must know. Man, that was crushing.
Yeah, that would be hard.
And we went around the company for months explaining, apologizing, and saying, this is how we will make sure this never happens again. But, that, and like I said, so it did shape me in great ways. But boy, that was hard.
Man, what you said there a minute ago about how it reflected on you. And I think a lot of owners, it's the dream to have GMs and people who are running the business so that you can, elevate your role.
Sure.
But the pitfall often is the person that you hand the keys to, they take on that attitude. And it's such a common thing in leadership to have sort of that tyrannical attitude. Unfortunately, maybe we could get into that in a minute as to why that seems to be a pattern. But the thing I was thinking about from that was just how once you realized what had happened and what had been going on and was confirmed to you, that you did the hard thing of, it couldn't have been easy to make the change.
No.
And then the humility to go around and let people know we didn't know and we're sorry and we want to make this right. I think sometimes, when we realize a mistake as a leader, there's that pride that's like, I don't know if I want to admit it.
Sure.
I can make it right from here, but I don't have to go around apologizing or saying anything about it. And I don't think that's the right approach. People need that to kind of feel like, okay, I can put this away now and I know who Matt really is, but I just appreciate that.
I realized I had been going around to people and believing the best and believing everything was good. And so I would go up to people that I hadn't seen in months and say, hey, how you doing? Pat them on the shoulder and everything going well, and kind of joking about stuff. I might say, is he treating you well? Oh, he's tough. It's hard for you to deal with. And they're smiling and laughing. And I'm walking off and I'm saying everything good, but the way I'm asking it is assuming a yes.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating a yes. And so it wasn't that I was insincere. I wasn't. I just was letting myself be lulled to sleep and operate under the assumption that generally speaking, everybody's great, everybody's happy, everybody's being treated well. And that's the thing I learned, that going forward, I was still going in believing good things and being upbeat and encouraging. But the difference was then I would say, how you doing? And I'm looking in their eyes. And I'm not patting them on the shoulder and assuming, I'm saying, how are you being treated?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them and they know I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are you being treated
real
well?
Opportunity to talk.
How are things? And once people started to realize, if I tell Matt I'm going to be safe, and if I tell Matt he seriously will, he will find a way to take care of it, then people would talk. And that really was a huge turning point for our culture in terms of everyone understanding, no, they're serious about this. If you mistreat people, you don't stay.
I love that.
Yeah.
That modeling that like radical candor where people can say the thing.
Yeah.
That's because we talk about all the time, leaders talk about like, it's okay to make a mistake, but until you get in the trenches and sit down, face to face or shoulder to shoulder with someone and actually have those conversations and work through a problem, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so much especially in smaller businesses, you can't make 3 mistakes in a row and stay in business. And so being able to have those honest conversations regularly, quickly, so that you can address the problems and your people understand why.
Right.
Like if something's wrong, like people need to know.
Right.
And
exactly.
if they don't know, they're never going to know, and they're going to keep going down the same path. And so that hearing that that culture, like hearing that practically laid out, that's really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I can say, and I'll yield the floor back. Sorry, but I want to clarify one thing. When I first started adjusting that approach, I knew that there were certain people who were afraid that it was like I was out there fishing. Mm. And I would say, guys, no, I'm not going on a witch hunt. I'm not going out there believing any of you are leading in a way that is outside what we have said is the way we're going to lead and treat people here at all. I'm still assuming the best, believing the best. Believe me, if I had any reason to think otherwise, we'd be talking about it. But I am going to ask, and they're going to know that they are safe in telling me. And so do understand that, if you're tempted to get outside the way we do things here, if you've got something to hide, then you should be concerned that I'm going to go out and ask people because I'm going to ask them seriously. And if there's something to share, I believe they're going to share it with me. So, yeah. But it wasn't a witch hunt. It was just saying, I'm paying attention now. I have a responsibility to all of these people as steward of all of these people's work lives to make sure that, again, what we've promised this culture is going to be like, that we're living up to it every day.
Well, I love that. A good faith attitude should never fear the truth. And if somebody is acting in good faith, there shouldn't be any trouble with having questions or yeah. And I think that's a good way to just go about life in general.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of biblical principle built into that and everything that you're saying today. And I think this is something that we wanted to get into a little bit with, and even what you teach at LCU with your students. When you talk about faith and your business and how those two work together, what does that look like? And what do you have to say on that subject?
A lot.
Let's go.
That's what I do. Yeah. I think one of the things I say to my students when they come in, because it's an application-based class, it's senior level. They have to apply to get in. They have to be recommended by their advisor. It's meant to be a bit of a privilege to be admitted. It's it's capped at 8 students. Although we usually break the cap and have 9. But one of the things I say to them early on is, look, I know you've heard some good things about this class, but you shouldn't expect some shocking revelation, the heavens to open and suddenly all truth is revealed to you. And you're hearing all these things you've never heard before. Say our faith in general is actually pretty simple. It's a relationship with God, and he has some very basic things that he has asked us to do. Now, the problem is we struggle with those basic things on a daily basis. Yeah. But the basics of living out your faith at work are not that complicated. Yes, scenarios differ, and we figure out what it looks like to apply it from one scenario to the next. But the main thing I try to get across to them is to say, look, if we really believe what we say we believe, what we want to believe, it should change everything about our perspective, our vantage point, our approach, the way we make choices. If we really believe and we go all in with trusting God, that he is in charge and we should do what he said, whether we like it or not, honestly, but B, that he is good and that his ways are good, and his ways are not only good for the kingdom, they're best for us. The more you go all in on that and trust it, you're going to live free in all parts of your life, but that includes work. And God's ways for our lives are best. God's ways for work are best. God's ways of leading are best. And I say to the students, God's way of doing business, and God does biblically, you can see that there is a way he wants us to do business. It's actually good business. It's actually great business. And while the point of it is not to go out and get rich or grow, the way he ordered creation and created us all in his image to appreciate things that are done in a way that's in alignment with his heart and character, when we treat the people that we work with this way, they're going to like working here. They're going to want to stay. They're going to tell their best friends that they think would be great here, hey, you should come apply here. Mm-hmm. When we treat guests well, they're going to want to come back. They're going to tell their friends. When we treat vendors well, they're going to want to serve us well and be great partners to us. Right. You know, when we do things in a way that is filled with integrity and honor, and we never cheat other people, they can trust us. Again, they're going to want to do business with us. They're going to want to be teammates with us. It's good business, and that's God's way. So anyway, I just try to make sure that that the students see it's not the idea of, yes, I am a Christian and I also am bald, and I'm also from Tennessee, and I also like movies, and I'm also, this is my gift and this is my job. No, that's the center. The center of my life is my faith, and everything else flows out of that. It's not a descriptor, it's the point, and then everything comes out of that. And so to try to get them to see, when God has a way here and the business or the world is telling you to go the other way, once you see that this is a clear choice, there should be no question. We want to be in a place where there's no question in our mind which one we're going to choose. We trust him that much.
Okay. At church right now, we're doing a series about work, about, I think it's called It's More Than a Job. And we've had some really fun conversations at home with my two boys, and kind of the onset of that is like, God worked and made the world. He worked 6 days.
Made us for this purpose. Yeah.
He worked 6 days and then he rested. And so, our work is designed to be this labor and rest. And it was even like before the fall,
right?
In Genesis 2 or 3, that he, like, one of the first things that he does is he gives the garden to Adam and Eve to work it,
right?
To subdue it, to have dominion or stewardship over it. Anyway, so when I talk to my boys and they're like, Dad, you have to go to work. And I'm like, I always make a point to say, boys, I get to go to work.
Right.
I get to go to work and I make money. And what money is these little certificates of service for serving people.
That's awesome.
For helping people. And God made us to work.
Yeah.
And God will make you to work, and we're going to figure out what that is, how you are uniquely gifted to serve the world.
And it's so good.
Yeah. It's so good. And I think, and I want to ask a question in a second, but I think often that Christians have an inappropriate view of work, that they think it's this.
The podcast can't see, but I'm nodding so hard I'm going to snap my own neck.
It's like, it's this thing where we just have to suffer through and toil through, and it's just this necessary evil.
Right. That it's an after the fall thing.
Yes. And in reality, like, God made us to work. He made us to serve other people. And he embodies that in the first book of the Bible.
It's a source of so much fulfillment and so much good. Yeah.
So my question I was getting to is your students. What's like a common misconception that these kids who are often Christian come into your class? What are some misconceptions they have about faith and business?
Well, again, I think, and again, we begin dispelling this from the beginning. I joke with them and I say, and every once in a while it gets one of them and then I feel bad. I say, I know a lot of y'all have grown up knowing some scripture. And so I want to just try something here. I want y'all to flip in your Bibles. And of course they all get at their Bibles and they're ready and they're looking at me and ready to turn pages. Say, find the passage. I want to see who knows where it is. Find the passage where God says, I am the Lord. Everything belongs to me. You will wake up in the morning and worship me. When you go to work, you will leave me behind. And then when you get finished with work, you will come back to me and I will be your God. And they look at me and some of them are kind of trying to flip and they're looking at me with one eye. And then a couple of them will grin. They're like, no, that's absurd, right? That's not in there.
Right.
But so many people, including so many Christians, followers of Christ, they operate from a place as if that is the way it's supposed to be. Business is business. It's not business. It's not personal. It's business. And I'm not saying those sayings don't have any validity. It's just that unfortunately people take them so much out of context and don't understand that, all within the framework of doing things God's way. So there's this sense that I'm trying to really help them to see it's not true. It's a lie from the enemy that you are a sucker if you're going to go all in with God in the world of business. You are going to get left behind. You're going to get passed over for promotion after promotion. You're not going to make as much money as everybody else. You're not going to be successful, in air quotes, all of these things. And that the only way to really succeed is to leave some of that off to the side, because the only way you can actually compete is you got to get in there and throw elbows, and you got to fight dirty occasionally, and you got to put yourself first. And so really it's just on topic after topic, getting to that and saying, look, it's woven throughout the Bible that there is the world's way and then there is God's way.
Yeah.
And those two are usually very different. And again, the more we can see the difference, we know which way we want to choose.
One question I have that comes up when we're on this subject, and I'd love to hear your take on this. On one end of the spectrum, you've got maybe a Christian business owner, but they never talk about their faith. That's never part of the conversation when they get to work. It's like they've turned that part of themselves off,
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. That's obviously a problem, at least in my opinion. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you could fall into this pitfall of we're using the Christian label for, we're going to attract a little bit more on a marketing angle, or even worse, maybe we blast everything with our Christian faith and then we don't do business in a very godly way.
Right.
And now we've damaged, in some people's eyes, the idea of a Christian business owner. So where is that balance to you of like, I am a man of faith, I am a business owner, but I also want to be careful in how I handle that and display it to others. Where do you fall in that?
First of all, this is such a great question, and we could talk about this for an hour and hopefully touch the main areas. But in a nutshell, I would say it's kind of like, I think about this kind of the way I think of denominations within the church, how, they all have their strengths and they all have blind spots and some areas of weakness. And yet, unfortunately, the more we like our own denomination, the more tempting it is to sort of think our denomination has it right and sort of, point fingers and poke at.
Are you saying that happens?
The other, maybe once in a while. I might have even been a part of it before. What I would say to someone if they are asking the question, how overt should a business be about its faith?
Yes.
My belief is that there's a broad spectrum there. And that, again, that is between the person and the Lord. And that the Lord is going to tell you how he would have you go about it based on all variety of factors, some of which probably are beyond our comprehension. I think there are certain businesses that are very overt, and it's woven clearly, intently throughout the whole organization, and customers know and vendors know that's who they are. That's their identity. I think that's great. There are other businesses where the owner or the ownership family or the people who are leading it, they absolutely see it as an expression of their faith. They want it to be a complete extension of their faith. They want to be consistent with their faith, but they feel led to do it in a much more sort of undercover way. They're not going to talk openly about it, maybe even among their team. See, this is where I can see people on either side of this pointing at the other and saying they're not doing it right. So I don't agree with that kind of thinking at all. I think there's room for those two extremes, and I think there's room in the middle. I think what you pointed out is the thing. No matter what, God calls us to be committed to him and do things his way, period.
Mm-hmm.
Close the book, right? I mean, he doesn't give us excuses because this is what you need to do to be successful as a business. No, we're supposed to be committed to doing things his way, whether or not we are overt or covert. But there is an extra caution. The more you're going to be overt and you're going to claim his name and you're going to put his name on stuff, great. I'm not encouraging you not to do that. I'm just saying you are taking on an extra responsibility in that calling, not to betray his name, not to damage witness before him, not to send people running the other way. And look, we're all hypocrites at some point. And so I would hope that if I go that way and I'm going to be very overt, it's because I sense that is what God is calling me to do. He wants me to do. And then I'm humble before it and recognize first and foremost, okay, I'm a mess and I've got all kinds of sin that I'm still struggling with. We got to make sure we're talking about that as an organization, that we're open about this, but that we have a commitment here. We're putting his name out there. We got to hold each other accountable, that we are all, and I want you, if I'm the owner, I want you guys to talk to me anytime you think I am operating in a way that is a bad witness or that is contrary to his ways, or that we're talking about making a business decision that you think, hey, this doesn't align with my understanding of how God would have us do it. So that we're really open about our need for accountability there.
Yeah. So it's going to look different for everybody, but you've got to,
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's fair though. I think that makes sense.
And I think so many, whether it's the people we work with or the customers that we serve, sometimes the only sermon they're ever going to hear is the life and example that you lead.
That's right.
And I think, on the podcast, I think of Joe Rogan right now, that, a very loud atheist for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had some guests. He's kind of surrounded himself with some people that are believers, that are strong believers. And you've heard it over the last few years of this, like, his curiosity has peaked.
Right.
Like, what's different about these people?
Right.
Like something's different. What these principles, he's kind of starting out like these Christian principles, maybe they do lead to a better life. And you see that him pulling on that thread and Lord willing, he will become a Christian and he will have such a great testimony.
Oh my goodness.
But what an example of just living in a godly way, in a humble way. And when you feel called, when you feel convicted to be more overt with that, like, lean into that. But I think first and foremost, as business owners, if we put Christianity or Jesus first on the wall, and that's some of our values, and we don't treat people well, and we don't care about how people are treating our people, man, what a one step forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah. I think that's part of what, it goes into the consideration. At the same time, I don't ever want to be, ashamed of the gospel of Christ and who I am in his kingdom.
That's right.
And so weighing that, having discernment, being prayerful about it as a business owner. And I love your answer, Matt, in that, it's going to look different for different people. And I think that's true wisdom.
Just as you said, if I'm not being overt, I want to check my heart, and I want God to check my heart that it's not because I'm afraid or ashamed or I find it to be financially disadvantageous.
Yes.
United is a great example of this. And I certainly became much more overt with our team. And I think, and I feel good about that. I would go back and do the exact same thing again, even though, again, a lot of my family didn't support that or agree with it. And we tussled over it. But the fact of the matter is, and my uncle would say this, who was in leadership before my brother and I got there, that, we serve everybody. In a grocery store, we're trying to serve everyone in the community. And there are a lot of people in there who don't subscribe to those beliefs for all kinds of reasons, including maybe they feel like they've been burned by it. They've been turned off by it.
Yeah.
And so in that setting, in that business, it made sense to say, look, our goal is to make sure we are treating them and we are walking with Jesus' love and treating them the way that he would have us treat them.
Yeah.
Okay. And serve them the way he would have us serve them. But we want our doors open wide so everyone feels comfortable coming. And if we're putting a cross on the front of United, there were going to be a bunch of people who are going to say, I don't think so. I'm not going there because I know how those Christians are. So the goal was, again, open the doors wide. Everybody's welcome. And again, that went for our team too. And there were people on our team who I knew did not, they didn't align with our faith, but they did respect and appreciate the way we went about it. And they stayed because of that. And as you said, that's part of what we're there to do, is be salt and light and not just have a Christian club,
Yeah, exactly. Very good. We want to shine that light.
Yeah.
All right. You kind of walked through the journey of your career, at United, and your family ultimately sold to Albertsons, and you could have stopped. You could have stopped then and played a lot of golf or done a lot of camping. But since then, you've served at LCU, Lubbock Christian University, and taught there for what, 12 years?
This is my 10th year.
10
years.
years.
My 10th year.
10 years.
Very cool.
And I'm curious, like, you don't have to.
Sure.
But what is your vision for that? What does the future look like at LCU, and how you were serving at LCU?
That's a great question. I really love trying not to be in the future very much. Because honestly, as we know, the future is real to God, but it's not to us. It's just imagination. It doesn't exist. And yesterday is gone. It's not real anymore either. So today is what we have.
Yeah.
Today is where we are called to believe and think we know that we're going to even be here tomorrow is arrogance. And so in terms of the future, I have no idea. I mean, I love what I'm getting to do. I cannot believe the way God writes a story and that he lets me do this. There's every reason why I have no reason to be here doing this. I certainly didn't prepare for it. It was never on my radar, nothing I planned for. If God hadn't led me to go get an MBA late in my career with United, before I ever knew we were going to sell, we had put some other people through an MBA program, and I had delayed because the ones they were doing really took them away out of town and away from family. And I wanted to be with my family. So I discovered the Texas Tech working professionals program that was all in town. And I decided to do it just because I thought it'd be good for me. I didn't need to do it. I mean, it's not like I was going to get a better job or a promotion. I just thought this will be valuable.
Yeah.
Well, I graduated in August of 2013 and the business was sold December 28th, 2013. Wow. The point is, without that master's, I wouldn't be able to teach at LCU. And I'm here thinking I'm getting this master's so that it will help me be a better servant at United for the next 3 or 4 decades.
Yeah.
And in 6 months, United is gone for me.
Wow.
And God has me teed up for this next thing that, again, still was not even on my radar. And yet, I hesitate to say this kind of thing because I don't ever want my United family to misunderstand me. They know the spot they occupy in my heart and my story. But in many ways, I mean, it almost feels like it was all so I could come do this. I mean, I love what I get to do. And incidentally, Albert knows I got to serve 2 years in the role of dean at LCU in kind of just a funny turn of events. And I'm so grateful I got to. It was an incredible experience. The place didn't burn down while I was there. So, I hope that I contributed a few good things, but at the very least, I didn't wreck it. But I was grateful to lay that down. That was not what I felt like God was calling me to do long term. So yeah, it's interesting that so many people who've had the opportunity to have the first career that I had, where, there are a lot of things that come with that. Like you said, the ability to leave that and not then have to wonder where your next meal's coming from. And you can kind of do what you want to do. So many people who've been in that role, the next thing they go do is try to figure out how to do something even bigger and make even more money. And I don't know what, honestly. And I'm just grateful that I never felt called to that. And I gotta say, other than my salvation, the greatest blessing in my life is the woman God let me marry. Yeah. And I'm very blessed that I married a woman who was never enticed by any of that kind of stuff. There's nothing in her that needed me to go out and make a bigger name for Matt Bumstead and do it. Nothing about that was interesting to her unless that was what I felt called to do. And so I just had that freedom to say, God, where would you have me? And he just kind of ushered me along this path. And I look up and suddenly I'm getting to go to LCU, and I've never taught anything but Sunday school before. And now here I am. That's what I say. Nobody writes a story like God.
That's amazing.
The more we can take our hands off the wheel and trust him.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love getting to be there, and I don't have any desire to do anything. I mean, I have a consulting business and I do that on the side, but the vast majority of my working time is LCU, and I just love being in the students' lives. Incidentally, that was, we'll move on, but that was one of the things I realized in serving as dean. It was killing me, and in part because I was still spending as much time as I could get with students, because that's what I loved, and that's what God cut me out for, and that's why I felt like I was supposed to be there. The dean's got a lot of other stuff a dean's supposed to be doing, and to some degree, the dean is leaving the student relationships to everyone else, while the dean's, and I couldn't not be with the students, and that really is what I wanted. And so ultimately, it just made sense for me to keep doing that and let someone else who really felt called to that role do that role.
Well, the thing I'm learning from you today, and I think a lot of our listeners can learn, is having the courage to pursue the thing that gives you purpose and not just the dollar, not just the paycheck. And I really appreciate your example in that. We had this one question. I think this could be a good last question for our listeners. What's a principle that you teach at LCU to your students that you think every business owner or growing entrepreneur needs to hear?
Okay, so to some degree, it's some of the basic stuff I've talked about in terms of, look, God's way of doing things is the best way. Okay. Always, period. Even when we don't understand it. And certainly at times when the world doesn't reinforce that. And we will never be foolish for going all in with trusting him. And incidentally, there is an enemy out there who's, bent on stealing, killing, and destroying. And one of the main things he's going to do to try to obstruct us from doing what God has called us to do is put fear in our way. Fear of something, fear of not being significant enough, fear of not making enough money, fear of not whatever. And suddenly we're distracted by that, and we're not trusting God. Fear is the best obstacle to trust there is. So, I can never overemphasize that enough. But I think in general, to business owners, if we're not going to talk openly from a faith framework, then I think I would say, two things spring to mind. And one is, and it's cliche, but cliches are cliches usually because they're right. And that is, in all things and at all times, we should be seeking to do the right thing. Do what is right. Do what is just and honest and good and fair, and never compromise that. Now, again, in our faith and business class, we go through exercises of talking about how do you know what the right thing is. Yeah. But here in this
can be complicated.
Sure. But at least to desire that, at least for that to be a non-negotiable. Okay. Incidentally, y'all probably heard of Bill Hybels, who founded Willow Creek Church, and he has had a big ministry, and leadership is a passion of his. And I remember hearing him speak once about hiring. And he gave 4 C's of hiring, which I'm not usually one who's into like the 7 D's and the 2 E's and whatever, but I do like this one. And they were character, competence, chemistry, and culture. But the point he made that was the most important to me was character is number 1 for a reason. It's a non-negotiable. If you have questions about a person's character, you don't even need to go on.
Yeah.
The other 3 we can work with if we have maybe we're not as strong in one of those. But character, and so it's the same thing for a business. Yeah. This is your identity. We are, for better or worse, we are tied to this work and this place as a part of our life story and our good name. Never let your good name be for sale at any price, ever. So do the right thing. And then ultimately, the other thing I would say is, again, as a part of that same framework of your legacy and your identity, you're never going to be wrong for treating people well. And treating people with kindness and generosity and love and compassion, and trying to treat everyone in your sphere the best you can treat them. And that's sort of the definition of service, I suppose, in a business. But that's what I would say. I mean, if you think about the free market and the way it was originally envisioned by Adam Smith and the others, it is all about meeting someone else's needs. doing something good for someone else, and then they in return will do something good back for you.
Yeah.
And really, if we just remember that whole idea is supposed to be about honesty and transparency, and we're looking for a win-win here.
Right.
Not I'm going to win at your expense.
Yeah.
And if businesses could just embrace that and trust in it, more of them would do well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. I hope our listeners were taking notes today, because there's so many good things in here. The 4 C's, I need to write those down. I know character's number 1, but we need to talk later. So Albert, this has been a good one. I don't know. It's been one of my favorites.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for the privilege. It's been a delight.
All right. If you are a business owner and you feel stuck in your business, you feel stuck and your business has plateaued and you don't know how to get to the next level, go to our website, stagcoaching.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click to book your free consultation. And in your free consultation, we'll give you the next few steps you need to take your business to the next level. It's free, and it's on our website, stagcoaching.com. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.